Bone-chilling screams of terror filled the air as a massive Pakled fleet darkened Earth's skies, but one human watched calmly, a plan already forming in his battle-scarred mind. The Pakled, a brutal warrior race, had subjugated countless worlds through overwhelming force. Earth was to be their latest conquest. Panic gripped the planet as humanity realized it was hopelessly outmatched. Cities became war zones overnight. Governments collapsed. Anarchy reigned. Amid the pandemonium stood Peter Henry, a grizzled ex-Special Forces veteran. He had stared down death before and refused to cower. While others fled, Peter rallied those willing to fight. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but he knew guerrilla tactics could bleed the Pakled dry. On his command ship, Naso, the ruthless Pakled commander, watched with anticipation. He had led dozens of invasions and expected the primitive humans to quickly capitulate. But as days turned to weeks without surrender, frustration turned to rage. He unleashed the full might of the Pakled military upon the human rebels. What Neso failed to understand was the depths of human tenacity. Led by Peter, pockets of resistance struck hard and fast. Pakled patrols were ambushed. Supply lines were severed. The insurgents blended back into the cities and wilderness before the aliens could retaliate. Pakled losses mounted as a war they thought would last days stretched into months. On distant Pakled worlds, reports of heavy casualties and a resilient human resistance gave their leadership pause. Some questioned the wisdom of invading Earth. Others demanded Naso's head. But Naso refused to fail. His pride demanded human subjugation. He poured more ships and soldiers into the conflict, determined to drown the insurgency in Pakled blood. The stage was set for a long and bitter war, one that would decide the fate of Earth and test the limits of both human and Pakled resolve. From his hidden command post deep in the Appalachian Mountains, Peter Henry pores over a map of North America, studying the latest intelligence reports. Red pins mark Pakled bases, supply depots, and troop concentrations. He traces lines of attack with his finger, coordinating strikes hundreds of miles apart. Atlanta, Chicago, Phoenix, he says into a crackling radio, initiate Operation Falling Star. Across the continent, resistance cells leap into action. In Atlanta, a team of saboteurs infiltrates a Pakled motor pool. They plant explosives on the engines of 24 armored personnel carriers. The vehicles erupt in balls of flame, black smoke billowing into the night sky. Outside Chicago, a dozen resistance fighters lay in wait, camouflaged in the underbrush along a lonely stretch of highway. A Pakled supply convoy rolls into view, 3 trucks escorted by a pair of infantry fighting vehicles. The humans let the IFVs pass, then open fire with rocket-propelled grenades and anti-tank missiles. The trucks explode, their cargo of ammunition and spare parts erupting in a chain of secondary blasts. In the desert near Phoenix, a Pakled patrol sweeps a ravine, searching for signs of human activity. They pass between 2 towering mesas, focused on the path ahead. Too late, they hear the roar of engines behind them. A dozen humans on dirt bikes race out from hidden caves, automatic weapons blazing. In seconds, the Pakled unit is cut to pieces, their blood staining the sun-baked earth. Similar scenes play out in a dozen locations. Pakled forces find themselves harried and bloodied, always on the defensive. For every attack they repel, 2 more hit their flanks. Tales of human ingenuity and courage spread by word of mouth and underground radio broadcasts. A teenager in Oregon uses her hobby drone to drop grenades on Pakled sentries. A school teacher in Florida rigs a booby trap that takes out an alien platoon. Grandmothers and accountants take up arms to defend their homes. Peter quickly becomes a living legend, the mastermind behind the Resistance's successes. His face, printed on tattered posters and painted on crumbling walls, becomes a symbol of defiance. Thousands flock to join the struggle, bolstering the Resistance's ranks with both seasoned combat veterans and raw civilian recruits determined to liberate their world. Neso slams his fist on the arm of his command chair as he reads the litany of setbacks and losses. These primitives should have been subdued weeks ago. Now his own advisors whisper of stalemate and overextension behind his back. "Enough!" he growls. If the humans refuse to bow, he will grind them under his heel like the vermin they are. Target their cities, scour the countryside, burn their crops and poison their water. We will starve them out and hunt down the survivors. Pack-led ships rain orbital fire on human population centers. Neighborhoods become crater-pocked wastelands. Refugees stream into the hills and mountains, seeking shelter from the bombardment. On the ground, Pack-led troops kick down doors and drag families into the streets for questioning. Those who resist are made public examples of, their bodies left to rot in town squares. Peter receives word of a Pack-led destroyer shot down over Utah, its crew surviving to link up with their ground forces. He tasks a nearby resistance cell to track down and eliminate the reinforcements before they can reach friendly lines. In Colorado, human partisans sever a key bridge on a remote mountain supply route, sending a dozen Pack-led trucks tumbling into a ravine and forcing the aliens to divert their logistics flow hundreds of miles to the north. Every bullet and ration the Pack-led expend on Earth is one that can't support their next conquest. Every day the occupation drags on saps their strength for the wars to come. But Peter knows he's fighting the clock as much as the Pack-led. If the trickle of losses becomes a hemorrhage, the alien armada will pull back to regroup and rearm. He needs a decisive victory to shatter their will to fight. As if summoned by his thoughts, an intelligence officer bursts into the command post, a message flimsy in his hand. Pack-led forces massing in Montana, he reports breathlessly. At least 2 heavy armored divisions. Looks like they're gearing up for a major push. Peter studies the message, a grim smile spreading across his face. The Pack-led have taken the bait. For months, he's been staging attacks from a network of bunkers and tunnels in the Rocky Mountains, always fading back before the aliens can pin him down. Now, it seems, Nesso's patience has run out. "They want to fight?" Peter crumples the flimsy in his fist. "Let's give them one they won't forget." As the Pack-led forces close in on the last reported position of the resistance stronghold, they find nothing. A few camouflaged hatches and blast doors built into the mountainside, but no visible defenses or troops. Suspecting a trap, the Pack-led commander orders his forces to fan out in a wide perimeter, while scouts and drones scour the surrounding peaks and valleys for any sign of the humans. They find only silence and empty wilderness until the shooting starts. The Pack-led have barely begun to advance when the ridgelines erupt in muzzle flashes and rocket trails. Artillery shells rain down from pre-registered firing points, smashing Pack-led vehicles and sending infantry sprawling. The aliens return fire, their superior weapons chewing through the forest and scouring the mountainside, but the humans are dug in deep. Pack-led shells tear up earth and rock, but beneath the surface, the defenders hunker down in fortified tunnels and bunkers, emerging between barrages to pick off targets of opportunity. Pack-led infantry advance behind a wall of metal as their IFVs charge up the winding access roads, only to run into cleverly concealed minefields and anti-tank ditches. The burnt-out wrecks become obstacles for the forces behind them, turning natural choke points into killing fields. As the first Pack-led units reach the shattered tree line, they are met with withering fire from a dozen concealed pillboxes and machine gun nests. The humans have had months to prepare this battlefield, and they use every trick in the book to funnel the attackers into interlocking fields of fire. Still, the Pack-led come on, heedless of losses. Their second wave, third wave, fourth, clamber over the bodies of the first, closing on the human lines through sheer numbers and fanatical tenacity. In some sectors, the fighting devolves into a hellish melee as the aliens trade fire with human defenders at point-blank range among the shattered stumps and shell craters. But the Pack-led have made a fatal miscalculation. As their forces commit to the mountainside assault, fast-moving human units surge out of hidden trails to the north and south, taking the attackers in the flanks. These mobile forces, made up of dirt bikes, light attack vehicles, and power-armored commandos, wreak havoc in the Pack-led rear areas, ambushing reinforcements and logistics units, and even overrunning several of the air defense batteries that were supposed to protect the invasion forces' flanks. With their perimeter collapsing and taking fire from all sides, the Pakled attack turns into a mad scramble for survival. IFVs and heavy tanks fight vicious rearguard actions as the bulk of the force tries to extricate itself from the mountains. But there is no hiding from the human resistance on their own turf. Supply bases, landing zones, communications hubs all become targets for Peter Henry's marauders. By nightfall, the once mighty Pakled assault force has been shattered. Burning vehicles litter the valleys and ridgelines. Columns of smoke rise from distant ammo dumps and fuel depots put to the torch by human sappers. And everywhere, the triumphant cries of the resistance echo through the hills. On his flagship, Neso watches the disaster unfold with impotent rage. The tactical plot shows his units falling back in disarray, many dropping off the net entirely as they disintegrate under the human onslaught. Impossible, he seethes. Primitives with small arms and improvised explosives cannot stand against the might of a star-spanning empire. But the evidence is right there in front of him, undeniable and gut-wrenching. This was supposed to be the glorious battle that would break the back of the resistance and cow the humans into submission. Instead, it has turned into a humiliating rout that could threaten the entire occupation. Neso knows the vultures back home will waste no time spinning this debacle to their advantage. Unless he can turn things around quickly, he may find his forces pulled out from under him and given to a rival. Or worse, he may face a loss of confidence and an inglorious recall. No, that is unacceptable. These humans may be cunning, even brave in their own way. But he will not let them upset the rightful order of the galaxy, not on his watch. Summon my strategic council, he snaps to an aide. I want options for a new offensive within the hour. We'll scour this planet down to the bedrock if we have to, but one way or another, the human resistance ends now. Neso paced in his command center, fury radiating from every pore. The defeat in the Rockies stung, but he refused to let these primitive humans humiliate him further. Bring me the prisoner manifest, he snarled at a subordinate. Scrolling through the list, a cruel smile spread across his face. Perfect. Broadcast this on every channel, every screen. Let's see how brave they are when they watch their loved ones die. In New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Pakled-controlled cities across North America, heavily armed troops dragged terrified humans from detention centers. They were shoved into town squares, lined up before cameras. Peter's radio crackled with frantic reports. Sir, they're executing prisoners. It's all over the airwaves. Damn it, Peter muttered. He turned to his lieutenants. We move now. Alpha team, hit New York. Bravo, Chicago. I'll take LA myself. As the first shots rang out on screens worldwide, Peter's strike team sprang into action. In New York, resistance fighters used stolen Pakled armor to smash through barricades. Chicago's team deployed smoke grenades, creating chaos as snipers picked off alien guards. Peter's squad in LA repelled from stealth choppers, catching the Pakled executioners mid-broadcast. In a fierce firefight, they cut down the aliens and freed the hostages. Similar scenes played out across the country as the resistance struck back. But Neso was far from finished. He appeared on screens globally, his alien features twisted with rage. Foolish humans, he spat. You leave me no choice. Surrender now, or watch your world burn. The camera panned to show a massive orbital weapon, easily visible from the ground. Panicked calls flooded resistance channels as Neso detailed how the weapon would crack Earth's crust, triggering apocalyptic disasters. Peter's voice cut through the chatter. Stay calm. We've come too far to give up now. I have a plan, but I'll need volunteers. It's a one-way trip. Jack and Mike stepped forward without hesitation. We're with you, boss. Using data stolen from Pakled networks, the small team infiltrated a supply shuttle. They huddled in cargo containers, pulses racing as the ship docked with Neso's command vessel. Creeping through dimly lit corridors, they fought a running battle with Pakled security forces. Mike took a plasma bolt to the leg but kept firing, covering their advance. Go! Mike shouted as more Pakled troops closed in. I'll hold them here. Peter hesitated. but Mike shoved him forward. "Save the planet, you idiot!" With heavy hearts, Peter and Jack pressed on. They reached the weapon control room just as Naso was initiating the firing sequence. Peter charged the alien commander, tackling him in a fury of fists and elbows. Jack sprinted to the control panel, frantically trying to abort the countdown. Neso and Peter traded savage blows. The human was outmatched in strength, but fought with desperate intensity. He managed to get Neso in a chokehold, yelling to Jack, "How much longer?" 10 seconds, Jack shouted back, fingers flying over alien controls. With a final surge of effort, Peter slammed Neso's head into a bulkhead. The alien went limp just as Jack whooped in triumph. "Got it! Weapons offline!" Alarms blared throughout the ship as the humans sagged in exhaustion and relief. Earth was safe for now, but their ordeal was a long way to go. Peter wiped sweat from his brow as he surveyed the charred remains of Neso's command center. The Pakled leader's corpse lay crumpled nearby, a testament to their hard-fought victory. But Peter knew the war was just the beginning. "Jack, gather the intel team," he barked into his radio. "We need to hit them again while they're reeling." Hours later, Peter stood before a holographic map of North America, studying Pakled troop movements and supply lines. His eyes narrowed as he focused on a pulsing red icon beneath a sprawling urban center. "There," he said, jabbing a finger at the map. "That's their central depot. We take that out, we cut off their logistics across the continent." Jack frowned. "It's deep in occupied territory, Pete. Getting in there won't be easy." "When has that ever stopped us?" Peter replied with a grim smile. "Assemble the team. We move tonight." As darkness fell, Peter led a small force of hardened resistance fighters through the ruined outskirts of the city. They moved swiftly and silently, dodging Pakled patrols and deactivated security drones. Suddenly, plasma fire erupted from a nearby building. Peter dove for cover as Jack shouted, "Contact left!" The night lit up with muzzle flashes as the humans returned fire. Peter saw 2 of his people go down, their bodies smoking from direct hits. Gritting his teeth, he signaled to Jack. "Suppressing fire! I'm going to flank them!" Peter sprinted from cover to cover, the sizzle of near misses filling his ears. He reached the building's side entrance and kicked it in, surprising the Pakled defenders inside. His rifle barked 3 times, and the aliens dropped. "Clear," he called. "Jack, move up." They fought their way block by block, leaving a trail of Pakled corpses in their wake. Peter's heart pounded as they neared the city center, knowing the heaviest resistance lay ahead. Finally, they reached the massive blast doors guarding the underground complex. Peter cursed as he saw the reinforced barricades. "Conventional explosives won't cut it," he muttered. "We need to think outside the box." Working quickly, the team rigged a series of shaped charges around the door's perimeter. Peter held his breath as he triggered the detonator. The first blast shook the ground, but the door held. "Again!" he shouted. 3 more detonations followed in rapid succession. Cracks spiderwebbed across the barrier's surface. With a final thunderous boom, a jagged hole appeared, just large enough for a person to squeeze through. Peter was first through the breach, his weapon at the ready. For a moment, all was silent in the cavernous space beyond. Then all hell broke loose. Pakled troops opened fire from multiple elevated positions, their energy weapons carving glowing paths through the air. 2 more of Peter's team fell before they could find cover. "We're pinned down," Jack yelled over the din. "We can't advance." Peter keyed his radio. "Wildfire Actual, this is ground team. We need immediate air support on our position." "Ground team, that's danger close," came the reply. "You'll be in the blast radius." "Just do it!" Peter roared. Seconds later, the bunker rocked with explosions as resistance aircraft pounded the Pakled positions. Dust and debris rained down as Peter shouted for his team to push forward. They fought room by room, leaving scores of alien bodies in their wake. Peter's arms ached from the constant recoil of his weapon, but he pressed on. Finally, they reached the central chamber. Peter's eyes widened as he took in the vast stockpile of Pakled war materiel. Sleek ships sat in launch cradles alongside racks of fearsome weaponry. This was what they'd come for. "Plant the charges," he ordered Jack. "We've got 5 minutes to get topside." As they retreated, waves of Pakled reinforcements swarmed in. Peter and Jack fought a desperate rearguard action, buying time for their dwindling team to escape. They reached the surface just as the first explosions began to rock the complex. The ground heaved beneath their feet as they sprinted for the extraction point. Behind them, the entire city block imploded, swallowing the Pakled bunker in a massive sinkhole. Peter allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction as he watched the dust settle. They dealt the invaders a crippling blow, one that might just turn the tide of the war. As if in answer to his thoughts, a comm officer ran up with urgent news. "Sir, we're picking up signals from orbit. It's the Allied fleet. They've arrived." Peter looked to the sky where the first pinpricks of light were becoming visible. A fierce pride swelled in his chest. They'd held out long enough. Now it was time to take the fight to the stars. Peter's eyes widened as he watched the massive Allied fleet descend from orbit. Sleek warships and carriers filled the sky, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. On the ground, resistance fighters cheered and embraced as hope surged through their ranks. Admiral Tarek Solon, a tall, battle-scarred alien with 4 arms, strode down the ramp of his command shuttle. Peter stepped forward to greet him, grasping the Admiral's outstretched hand. "Welcome to Earth, Admiral," Peter said. "We've been holding out for reinforcements." Tarek nodded gravely. "Your resistance has been remarkable. Now let's finish this fight." In a makeshift war room, Peter and Tarek huddled over holographic maps of New York City. The blue glow illuminated their faces as they discussed strategy. "We hit them from orbit while you lead the ground assault," Tarek explained, pointing to key targets. "Our intel shows their command bunker here beneath Manhattan." Peter traced the route with his finger. "We'll need to move fast. The Pakled won't give up easily." As dawn broke, Peter addressed his troops. A mix of hardened resistance fighters and alien shock troopers stood at attention, their faces set with unwavering dedication. "This is it," Peter shouted. "Today we take back our planet." The sky erupted with fire as Allied ships bombarded Pakled positions. Peter led the charge, sprinting across rubble-strewn streets as plasma bolts sizzled past. Explosions rocked nearby buildings, showering them with debris. "Jack, take your team through the tunnels," Peter yelled into his comm. "We'll draw their fire topside." In the sewers below, Jack and his squad sloshed through murky water. The distant rumble of battle echoed through the tunnels. They emerged behind Pakled lines, catching the aliens off guard. "Flank secured," Jack reported as his team cut down surprised Pakled troops. Peter's forces pushed deeper into the city, alien aircraft screaming overhead to strafe enemy positions. The resistance fighters moved with practiced efficiency, years of guerrilla warfare paying off as they outmaneuvered the Pakled at every turn. Block by block, they fought their way to the heart of Manhattan. The Pakled command bunker loomed before them, its reinforced walls filled with weapon emplacements. "All units converge on the target," Peter ordered. A savage firefight erupted as human and alien allies assaulted the bunker from multiple angles. Energy weapons and ballistic rounds crisscrossed in lethal arcs. Peter ducked and weaved through the chaos, leading from the front. They breached the outer defenses and poured into the bunker. Close-quarters combat filled the corridors with acrid smoke and the screams of the wounded. Peter's rifle clicked empty. He smashed the butt into a Pakled soldier's face and kept moving. In the central command room, the Pakled commander sneered at the approaching humans. "You dare challenge us? We are superior." Peter charged forward, dodging blaster fire. He tackled the alien leader, grappling furiously. Around them, Jack and the shock troopers battled the commander's guards in a desperate struggle. With a final vicious blow, Peter subdued the Pakled commander. The alien slumped to the ground, defeated. Silence fell over the bunker as the remaining Pakled laid down their weapons. Peter stood, breathing heavily. He keyed his radio. "Command secured. New York is ours." Cheers erupted throughout the city as news of the victory spread. Over the next few days, Peter coordinated with Allied forces to root out the last pockets of Pakled resistance across North America. At a ceremony in the newly liberated United Nations building, Peter received commendations from both human leaders and alien allies. Admiral Tarek pinned a gleaming medal to Peter's chest. "Earth owes you a great debt," Tarek said, "but our work isn't finished." Peter nodded, his face grim. The pack-led homeworld. As long as it stands, Earth isn't safe. Tarek's eyes glinted with approval. "Precisely. We must take the fight to them. Are you ready for one last mission?" Peter glanced at Jack, who gave a determined nod. "Always," Peter replied. "What's the plan?" Peter's eyes narrowed as he studied the holographic display of Drenka. The pack-led homeworld hung suspended before him, its defenses laid bare by weeks of painstaking intelligence gathering. "This is it," he said, turning to Admiral Tarek. "We hit them here, and we end this war for good." Tarek nodded, his forearms crossed. "The risk is immense, but so is the reward. Are your people ready?" Peter glanced at Jack, who stood nearby. His friend's face was set with fierce intensity. "We've been ready since the day they invaded Earth." Over the next days, Peter handpicked his strike team. Hardened veterans of the Earth campaign, each soldier knew the stakes. As they boarded their stealth ship, Peter addressed them one last time. "What we do today will echo through history," he said. "For Earth, for our allies, for every world the Pakled threaten. We will not fail." The journey to Drenka stretched on for weeks. Peter paced the cramped confines of their ship, reviewing tactical data and running drills. When they finally dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Drenka system, adrenaline surged through his veins. "All ships commence attack," Admiral Tarek's voice crackled over the comms. The void erupted in fire as hundreds of Allied warships opened up on Drenka's orbital defenses. Massive Pakled stations splintered under the barrage, while swarms of enemy fighters scrambled to intercept. Peter gripped the arms of his chair as their stealth ship dove into the maelstrom. Warning klaxons blared as they skimmed past chunks of debris and sizzling energy beams. The hull groaned under the strain of their headlong plunge towards Drenka's atmosphere. 30 seconds to planetary entry," the pilot called out. "Brace for extreme turbulence." Peter's teeth rattled as they hit the outer atmosphere. The ship bucked and shuddered, threatening to tear itself apart. Red-hot plasma streamed past the viewports. With a final bone-jarring impact, they punched through to the planet's surface. Peter was up and moving before they'd fully settled, grabbing his rifle and heading for the exit ramp. "Go, go, go!" he shouted as the ramp dropped. They spilled out onto Drenka's barren surface, immediately coming under fire from Pakled defenders. Peter dove behind a rocky outcropping, plasma bolts sizzling overhead. "Jack, left flank," he called out. "Suppressing fire now." The air filled with the staccato bark of human weapons as Peter's team returned fire. He popped up, squeezing off precise bursts that dropped 2 Pakled soldiers. All around them, more Allied dropships were touching down, disgorging troops into the growing mayhem. Peter signaled his squad forward. They fought their way across the blasted terrain, each step bringing them closer to the looming capital city. Its massive shield dome shimmered under the constant barrage from orbit. As they neared the outer defenses, a pack-led artillery piece opened up on their position. The ground erupted in geysers of superheated rock and dirt. "Take cover," Peter yelled, diving into a shallow trench. He felt the searing heat of near misses as he army crawled to a better vantage point. Propping his rifle on the lip of the trench, he sighted in on the gun emplacement. "Jack, I need a distraction." His friend nodded, pulling a grenade from his belt. With a practiced motion, Jack lobbed it in a high arc. The Pakled gunners ducked as it detonated nearby in a shower of shrapnel. In that split second of confusion, Peter squeezed the trigger. His rounds found their mark, detonating the artillery piece's ammunition stores in a massive fireball. "Push forward," Peter ordered, vaulting from the trench. They fought their way through layers of defenses, Allied ships pounding the shield dome above. Peter's world narrowed to the next target, the next piece of cover, as they clawed their way into the city proper. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Peter looked up to see massive structures rising from hidden bunkers across the city. As they unfolded into towering obelisks, the air crackled with otherworldly energy. "The artifact weapons," Peter breathed. "We're running out of time." They redoubled their efforts, fighting street to street towards the central citadel. The sky above them filled with streaks of fire as allied ships were swatted from the heavens by impossibly powerful energy beams. Peter watched in horror as entire city blocks simply ceased to exist, vaporized by the unleashed power of the artifacts. The very fabric of reality seemed to warp and twist around them. "There!" Jack shouted, pointing to a heavily fortified entrance ahead. "That has to be it!" Peter nodded grimly. "One last push. Everything we've got." They threw themselves at the defenses with reckless abandon. Peter's rifle clicked empty. He snatched up a fallen Pakled weapon and kept firing. Jack kicked in the door, and they stormed inside. Wave after wave of Pakled troops met them, fighting with the desperation of cornered animals. Peter's team was whittled down to a handful of survivors as they battled their way deeper into the citadel. Finally, they reached the central control room. Peter's heart sank as he saw the massive artifact device dominating the chamber, its surface crawling with eldritch energies. A handful of Pakled leaders worked feverishly at its controls. "Stop them!" Peter roared, charging forward. Jack was steps ahead of him, emptying his weapon into the nearest Pakled. As the alien fell, its flailing arms struck a control panel. The artifact surged with power, tendrils of energy lashing out wildly. "Pete, look out!" Jack cried. Peter felt himself yanked backwards as Jack shoved him clear. A bolt of pure energy struck his friend full in the chest. Jack's body simply came apart, scattering into motes of light. Peter's fist clenched as he stared at the tactical display. The remnants of the Pakled war machine lay scattered across the sector, but a new threat had emerged from the chaos. "Sir, we've intercepted communications from the Arcadian Drift," his intelligence officer reported. "A Pakled commander named Borzal is rallying pirate forces." Peter's eyes narrowed. "Show me." The display shifted, revealing a web of shipping lanes crisscrossing the drift. Red markers indicated attacks on civilian vessels and colonies. "Borzal's hitting everything that moves," Peter growled. "We need to shut him down. Now." For days, Peter pored over intelligence reports and sensor data. His strategists worked tirelessly, using complex algorithms to predict Borzal's movements. Finally, Peter called his top officers to the war room. The air hummed with tension as he outlined his plan. "We'll split our forces," Peter explained, gesturing to the holographic battle map. "I'll lead the main assault group here. Jack, you'll take a stealth detachment and hit them from behind." Jack nodded, his face set with unbreakable spirit. "We'll make them regret ever raising the black flag." As Battle Group Defiant entered the drift, Peter stood on the bridge of his flagship. The vast expanse of space stretched before them, punctuated by the eerie glow of nebulae. "All ships, battle stations," Peter ordered. "Weapons hot." The fleet surged forward, sensors probing the void for signs of the enemy. Suddenly, alarms blared as multiple contacts appeared on the tactical display. "Pakled ships detected," the sensor officer called out. "They're moving to engage." Peter allowed himself a thin smile. Borzal had taken the bait. "All ships, open fire," Peter commanded. The void erupted in a dazzling light show as energy weapons lashed out from both sides. Borzal's pirates swarmed around Peter's forces, believing they had caught an isolated prey. Peter's ship rocked as it traded salvos with the Pakled flagship. Warning klaxons blared as systems took damage. "Shields at 60%, an officer shouted over the din. Just as the battle reached its fever pitch, new contacts appeared on the sensors. "Sir, it's Captain Hunter's group," the tactical officer reported. "They're hitting the pirates from behind." Caught between hammer and anvil, Borzal's fleet began to crumble. Peter watched with satisfaction as the Pakled flagship's shields finally collapsed under the relentless barrage. "Prepare boarding parties," Peter ordered, grabbing his rifle. "We're going in." The corridors of the Pakled ship echoed with weapons fire as Peter led the assault. His team fought from room to room, cutting through swaths of desperate pirates. As they neared the bridge, Peter heard the distinctive sound of Jack's voice shouting orders. The two groups converged on the command center from opposite sides. The bridge doors hissed open, revealing a scene of chaos. Borzal stood at the center, his alien features contorted with rage. As Peter and Jack's teams stormed in, the pirate leader grabbed one of his own crew, using the hapless Pakled as a living shield. "Stay back!" Borzal snarled, "or I'll—" Peter and Jack didn't hesitate. Their weapons blazed in unison, cutting through Borzal's meat shield and the pirate leader himself. Borzal's body hit the deck, riddled with smoking holes. In the aftermath, Peter oversaw the cataloging of captured vessels. He walked the decks of Borzal's flagship, now flying Defiance colors. "We'll refit what we can," Peter told Jack as they toured the engine room. "Every ship counts in this war." Over the following weeks, Battle Group Defiance scoured the Arcadian Drift. They hunted down every rumored pirate haven and holdout, leaving nothing but wreckage in their wake. As news of their exploits spread, Peter received reports from across known space. Some praised Defiance's iron-fisted pursuit of galactic security. Others whispered of the battle group's extreme methods, of worlds razed and populations decimated in their relentless war against the Pakled. Peter paid the whispers no mind. He had a job to do, and he would see it through to the bitter end. As Battle Group Defiance's reputation grew, so too did the unease among those who wondered where these human warriors would turn their sights next. Peter stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the holographic display of the Arcadian Drift. Red markers indicated confirmed Pakled positions, while blue represented Allied forces. A new cluster of green dots signified the unwelcome presence of the Concordance peacekeepers. "Sir, we've received a priority transmission from intelligence," his communications officer reported. "They've located a major Pakled weapons repository in the Kestrel Nebula." Peter's eyes narrowed as he studied the new data. The repository was nestled deep within the nebula's swirling gases, protected by layers of Pakled defenses. "Prepare the fleet for immediate departure," he ordered. "We strike before they can relocate their stockpile." As the crew rushed to battle stations, Peter felt a familiar presence at his side. Jack stood there, his face etched with concern. "Pete, the peacekeepers are hailing us," Jack said quietly. "They're requesting a briefing on our next move." Peter's teeth gritted. He punched up the comm channel, Commander Halix's alien visage appearing on screen. "Commander Henry, our sensors detect your fleet is mobilizing," Halix said, his multifaceted eyes gleaming. "What is your intended target?" "That's classified, Commander," Peter replied coldly. "Suffice it to say, we're acting on credible intelligence regarding Pakled war materiel." Halix's tendrils writhed in agitation. "I must insist on full disclosure of your operational plans. The Concordance has tasked us with—" Peter cut the transmission mid-sentence. He turned to his bridge crew, who watched him expectantly. "Plot a course for the Kestrel Nebula, maximum speed," he commanded, "and jam all outgoing transmissions from the peacekeeper vessels." As Battle Group Defiance surged into FTL, Peter knew he was forcing a confrontation, but he couldn't allow bureaucrats and alien interests to hamper his mission. Hours later, they dropped out of FTL at the nebula's edge. The swirling clouds of gas and cosmic dust filled the view screen, obscuring the Pakled base within. "Sir, multiple contacts incoming," the sensor officer called out. "It's the peacekeepers. They've managed to follow us." Peter watched as the resplendent Dawn and its escort ships fell into formation alongside Defiant. His tactical display lit up as Halix hailed them again. "Commander Henry, I demand you stand down immediately." Halix's voice crackled over the speakers. "Your actions are in direct violation of Concordance protocols." Peter leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. "We are about to strike a critical blow against the Pakled menace. Stand aside or be prepared to fire on fellow Concordance ships." A tense silence fell over the bridge. Peter could almost feel the shock emanating from the peacekeeper vessels. "You wouldn't dare," Halix sputtered. "This is madness." "This is war," Peter replied simply. He nodded to his weapons officer. Target the Pack-led repository and fire at will. Full barrage. The void erupted in a dazzling light show as Defiant's guns opened up. Streams of plasma and antimatter warheads lanced into the nebula, punching through the swirling gases to strike at the hidden base. Alarms blared as the peacekeepers moved to intercept. But Peter had anticipated this. With a series of crisp orders, he directed his fleet to execute a pincer maneuver, boxing in the Concordance ships. "Last warning, Hallex," Peter growled over the comm. "Stand down or we'll be forced to disable your vessels." On the tactical display, Peter watched the peacekeeper ships hesitate. He could almost see the conflict playing out on their bridges. Duty versus self-preservation. Finally, the resplendent Dawn's weapons powered down. Hallex's voice came over the channel, tight with barely contained fury. "This isn't over, Henry. The Concordance will hear of this treachery." Peter ignored the threat, focusing instead on the streams of data flowing in from their attack on the repository. The Pack-led defenses were crumbling under Defiant's relentless assault. "Push forward," he ordered his fleet. "I want that base reduced to atoms." As Battle Group Defiant advanced deeper into the nebula, Peter knew he had crossed a line. But he would deal with the consequences later. For now, there were Pack-led to kill and a war to win, regardless of the cost. Peter's eyes narrowed as he studied the intelligence report on his datapad. The flickering hologram before him displayed a massive asteroid belt orbiting a dead world, its depths concealing a Pack-led weapons repository. "Jack, get the assault team prepped," Peter ordered, his voice tight with urgency. "We're hitting that stockpile before those bastards can rearm." As the crew scrambled to battle stations, Peter activated the ship's advanced sensor mask. The Defiant's energy signature vanished from scanners, leaving only empty space where a battle group had been moments before. "Sir, the resplendent Dawn is hailing us," the communications officer reported. Peter's face hardened. "Put them through." Commander Hallex's agitated face appeared on screen. "Henry, what's the meaning of this? Your ships have gone dark." "We have a priority target, Hallex," Peter replied coldly. "We'll be out of contact for some time. Defiant out." He cut the transmission before the peacekeeper could protest further. Peter turned to his helmsman. "Full burn towards the target coordinates. Engage cloaking systems." The Defiant surged forward, its sister ships falling into formation as they raced towards the asteroid belt. Peter allowed himself a grim smile as he watched the tactical display. Right on cue, the resplendent Dawn began pursuit. "Tripwire mines in position, sir," the weapons officer reported. Peter nodded. "Let them come." Minutes ticked by as the peacekeeper ship drew closer to the trap. Suddenly, alarms blared across the Defiant's bridge. "Mines activating," the tactical officer shouted. "Gravimetric shear field engaging." On the interface, Peter watched as the resplendent Dawn was caught in a web of energy. The peacekeeper vessel's engines sputtered and died, great chunks of its hull shearing away under the intense gravitational forces. "Status report on the resplendent Dawn," Peter demanded. "Engines offline. Multiple hull breaches," came the reply. "They're dead in space, sir." Peter's expression remained impassive. "Continue on course. We have a job to do." As they approached the asteroid belt, the true scale of the Pack-led operation became clear. Sensor scans revealed a sprawling shipyard and weapons factory nestled deep within the rocky maze. "Sir, those asteroids are unstable," the science officer warned. "A direct assault could trigger a chain reaction across the entire belt." Peter's eyes hardened. "Then we'll bring it all down. Prepare main batteries for orbital bombardment. Target the largest concentrations of Pack-led activity." The Defiant's guns roared to life, joined by the massed firepower of the entire battle group. Searing lances of energy and projectiles moving at relativistic speeds tore into the asteroid field. Explosions bloomed in silence as chunks of rock were vaporized, revealing glimpses of hidden Pack-led structures. Each exposed facility was met with a relentless barrage of firepower. "Sir, we're detecting multiple secondary explosions," the tactical officer reported. "The Pack-led munitions stockpiles are going up." Peter leaned forward, his voice cold. "Good, keep firing." Hours passed as the onslaught continued. The asteroid belt disintegrated under the sustained assault, reduced to an expanding cloud of debris and molten rock. Only when the last energy signature of Pakled technology winked out did Peter finally give the order to cease fire. As the dust settled, the battered form of the resplendent Dawn limped back into sensor range. Peter watched impassively as the Peacekeeper vessel's sensors swept the devastation. "They're broadcasting on all concordance channels, sir," the communications officer reported. They're calling for your immediate removal from command." Peter's lips twisted in a humorless smile. Let them complain. We just prevented another Pakled war. He turned away from the view screen, the remains of the asteroid belt still glowing behind him. "Set course for the next target. We're not done yet."
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.